Hello, what's up YouTube photographer ronnixphotography. In this tutorial, you're going to be learning and understanding how to do skin retouching from the very start to the very end. So we are also going to be learning how to color grade your photos in Photoshop. And if at all you want to download the image to follow along, check the links in the description of this video so that you can download the raw file and follow along in this tutorial. So we just want to understand how frequency separation works, and we are going to also incorporate an action for those that want to speed up the retouching process when it comes to Photoshop. Remember, actions are basically more of shortcuts that are going to enable us or help us fasten or quicken the retouching process in Photoshop. So simply like this video, don't forget to subscribe if at all you're watching and you're not yet subscribed to this channel. So I'll just come to this image. So in order to open up the raw file in Photoshop, simply select the photo and simply right click and come to open with, and simply select the Photoshop version that you're using. So right now the image is now going to be open in Photoshop, and the next thing is going to be correcting the lighting and contrast issues regarding the image. So for this case, you can see that the image is having more whites in some areas. So just want to first of all correct those mistakes. So what I'll do, just first of all increase my brightness. So what I'll do, I'll first of all come to the highlights and simply reduce the highlights and do the same for the whites to get rid of that too much white in the skin tone area. So I'll just come and open up the shadows a little bit and add contrast to the image by taking up the contrast slider, and I'll take the blacks down a little bit. So this is what we have as the before after. And if at all it looks a little bit underexposed, you can always come and open up the shadows or taking up the exposure. So after doing that, we're just going to come and make sure we put in these selections right here. So make sure the color space is set Adobe RGB 98. The bit depth is set to 16 bits per channel. And always make sure the resolution is 300 pixels per inch. Sharpen for screen selected and amount set to standard. And simply hit OK. So you have to set these once when it comes to Photoshop. So just come and click open to open the photo in Photoshop. So right now we are in Photoshop. And usually the very first thing we would love to do when it comes to editing a photo in Photoshop or retouching it is first of all cropping the image. So I'll just come to the crop tool right here and left click on it and just come down here to a ratio of 4:5 or 8:10, because when you post such a photo on Instagram, we would love it to be in its most or fullest form. So I'll just leave it at that, and I'll simply crop the image. So just move and drag it to your taste or preference. So I think that is okay, and I'll just hit enter. So right now we are done cropping the image. So nothing is going to be working on the skin. So in order to perfect the skin, oftentimes we'd love to do frequency separation. And remember, frequency separation divides the image into the high frequency layer and the low frequency layer. In the high frequency layer, we have our textures. Then in the low frequency layer, we have the colors. So let me first of all show you how basically frequency separation works. And after, you are going to be incorporating an action. An action is a shortcut that is going to fasten the steps that I'm about to show you. So let me first of all go in depth with frequency separation and how the layers basically work. So I'll just come right here to the background and press Ctrl J to create two layers. Remember, this is going to be the low frequency layer, and this is going to be our high frequency layer. So remember, in the low frequency layer we have the colors, and in the high frequency layer we have the textures. So basically we come and hide the high frequency layer and select the low frequency layer. Then we are going to simply come to our filter and come to blur and come to Gaussian blur. So we are going to take the radius all the way down, and we click on an area we feel has more skin textures than the rest of the image. So for this case, I feel like the forehead area has more skin textures than the rest of the image. Then what we have to do, and this is the most important step when it comes to editing and using frequency separation, we simply left click on the radius and drag up the radius up to a point whereby we are just starting to close out on the skin textures of the image. So at around 7, that is when I'm just starting to close out on the skin textures of this very photo or this image, and hit OK. Depending on the details in the image, your radius may be varying because your image may be taken using a different camera and may be a little bit sharper or have more or less details, meaning the radius is going to be differing. So the gist here, or the main point right here, is you have to left click and drag up the slide up to when you just start to close out on the skin details in your photo or in your image. And after that, just click OK and come and select the high frequency layer and now activate it. And when you activate it, you are now going to come to image and come to apply image. So oftentimes most people tend to misuse also this kind of step and they don't get the best results. So always make sure you do or you put in these settings the way I'm about to explain to you. So make sure the layer is set to low frequency layer, or you select this layer under, you select the middle layer under this layer option, which is the low frequency layer. Make sure the channel is set RGB, and make sure the blend mode, since we are having 16 right here, it means the image is going to be 16-bit. So make sure for a 16-bit image, if at all you have 16 right there, the blending has to be added, the scale has to be 20 offset 0. Make sure preserve transparency and mask are not checked, and opacity at 100%. So for a 16-bit image, you just turn on the invert option, and as soon as we do that, you can notice that the textures are on this gray layer. Then if at all you're having 8 right here, make sure the blend mode you use, make sure the invert option is not turned on. After selecting the low frequency layer, come and change the blend mode to subtract. Make sure you type in the scale to 2 offset to 128. Just type in 128 and you leave these settings the way they are meant to be, and you can click OK. So after doing that, so basically since mine is a 16-bit image, I'll just put in the settings for a 16-bit image. So I'll just I'll put this back to add and invert this and hit OK. So just come to the blend mode and change it from normal and change it all the way down to linear light, and you'll get back the image was the way it was meant to be. So we put these two in a group basically and press Ctrl G, and we usually rename this group to frequency separation. So basically, if at all we turn this background layer off, we still have the same image and there shouldn't be a difference or a change in the image. But when we open up this folder, you can notice that we have the image on the colors or displaying the colors alone, and we also have the same photo displaying the textures alone. So when we combine these both, it is basically the same image that we end up with. So I'll just come back and activate the background layer. So that is how frequency separation divides the image into the colors and textures, so that when you combine both the colors and textures, you end up with the same image. So if at all you are having actions, this is what you have to do. So always make sure you come to window and come and make sure actions is selected. Open up the action panel or the action window in Photoshop, and after doing that, select or import the actions. And to import the actions, basically I have also actions for sale. Check the links in the description to purchase my skin retouching actions. So to import the actions after downloading them from wherever you got them, simply click on those lines or that bag icon, and you can simply come and select load actions to load actions into Photoshop. Or the other way to import actions in Photoshop is basically locating them and double clicking on them, and they are going to automatically be opened in Photoshop. So after importing the actions, they are going to be displaying right here. So my image is a 16-bit image. So I'll just come and play my 16-bit action. So click on the play button, and usually the action stops at the point when you have to determine or put in the radius for your Gaussian blur. And like I said, always click on the skin and take up the radius, slide up to a point. So you have to stop at the point whereby the textures are just starting to disappear from the image, and click OK, and the action or shortcut is going to create all the layers for a frequency separation for us. So basically, I'm just going to delete that whole layer. So this is what we had created earlier on, but I just wanted to show you the steps for how to create or go about those actions if at all you have landed on a computer with no actions installed in them, and you have to do everything from the very start. So it is always important that you learn and understand the basics of something before getting into the shortcuts. So right now we have created or played the action, and the next thing is going to be editing the image. So when it comes to frequency separation, what we have to do oftentimes is we want first of all blend the transitions within the skin tones or a skin color so that we can blend those transitions quite well. But before blending the transitions between the skin tones or a skin color, we always have to hide the textures. The reason for hiding the textures is because we always want to deal with the colors so that we don't get distractions or distracted by the textures in the photo or the image. So what we have to do, we have hidden the high frequency layer which is containing the textures, and we have selected the low frequency layer. So right now we have selected this layer. Remember, this is the layer that is containing the skin tones of the image, which is the low frequency layer. And after selecting it, we now have to get a tool that is going to enable us blend the transitions better, and that tool is known as the mixer brush tool. So we are going to come to the brushes and right click and look for a mixer brush tool. And if at all the mixer brush tool is not showing under the brushes, you can always locate the mixer brush tool by right clicking here and looking for your mixer brush tool. So for whichever tool you select in Photoshop, the settings for that tool are always going to display right above here. So after selecting the mixer brush tool, it is time to set it. So make sure that you set the hardness to 0 and soft round brush is selected. Then always make sure that you have selected clean brush. So drop this down and select clean brush. The reason for selecting clean brush is because we want the brush to be clean enough, because as we're dealing with different colors in the skin tones, we are dealing with variations or different skin tone colors, and we want the brush to be clean every single time we are working on a new area regarding skin tone. So we have two options right here. One is saying load brush after each and every stroke, and the second one is basically clean the brush after each and every stroke. So make sure you select the second option, which is clean the brush after each and every stroke. The reason for that is because we want Photoshop to automatically clean the brush for us when we are working on a new area. So for example, if at all we are working right here and we want to blend the transitions on this highlight, we want Photoshop, as soon as we finish mixing here, to automatically clean the brush for us so that we can work on an area that has a different skin tone variation. We wouldn't want to carry colors from this area to this area, because that is going to make the image look odd or weird. So make sure the weight is 9%, load of 75%, and mix at 90 and with a flow of 100%. Make sure sample orders is not turned on, because for example, when you leave this turned on and you select sample all layers, you have commanded the brush to copy colors from all these layers in the frequency separation group, and you have commanded it to paint them in the low frequency. So if at all we paint on the shoulder area, you can notice that it paints back textures in the low frequency layer, which we don't want. So always make sure you are careful with that. So I'll just undo, and to undo, always press Ctrl Z or Command Z on the keyboard. So make sure you turn this off and hide the high frequency layer. So after setting up the mixer brush tool, you select the color layer or the low frequency layer, and the next thing is going to be blending the transitions within the skin and mixing them to have a better and smoother transition between the skin tones. So you can notice that on the forehead area, we have this kind of dark patch right there that is existing within the midtones. So what we have to do, we have to get a desirable size of the mixer brush tool and blend this area so that it can blend within the predominant color in that area. So to increase or decrease on the size of the mixer brush tool, you can use the open and close brackets on the keyboard to increase or decrease on the size of the mixer brush tool. Then if at all your mixer brush tool is showing a plus icon, simply press the caps lock key so that the mixer brush tool is showing this circular shape. So to work on this area, we make sure the size of the brush is smaller and it can blend that given area. Don't use a big size of a brush. So to mix this area, we left click and hold down and we mix that area. You left click and hold down and you mix that area. So to work on a new area, you release the left click button and you come and basically paint on a new area just like that. So we have this highlight and we are just going to mix the highlight alone just like that. So to blend the transitions better, reduce on the size and get a small brush, and you can now come and mix that line so that it can blend well with the other surrounding skin tones. So as we're doing this, you can notice that the image is going to be looking a little bit plastic. But the reason for it looking that way is because we have turned off the texture layer, and as soon as we turn on the texture layer, you can notice that the textures are still left intact in the image. So you can see a before and after for just working on the forehead area. So we're going to be proceeding with this. So I'll turn this off and select the low frequency layer. So how to take or to move the brush? Always move it in the direction of how a given area is shaped. So the cheekbone area is moving in this direction, so I'll move the brush in this direction, so to follow how the cheek is shaped. So I'll mix just like that, and the chin is moving in this direction, so I'll move it in this kind of view direction and mix these colors there like that. And by the way, as you're mixing, make sure that you don't zoom all the way in, because when you zoom all the way in, and better to zoom in, you can use Ctrl plus on the keyboard, or you can use Command plus. Then zoom out is Command minus. So when you zoom all the way in like this, you can't see the uneven skin tone transitions. So it is always better you retouch at a distance, whereby you can see or identify the uneven skin tone transitions, so that you can go ahead and blend them better, or you work on blending or smoothing them out and create that nice and better transition between those colors. So you can increase and work on these brightest points just like that. So make sure you take your time and always practice, so you don't learn this overnight. So always practice, and you can notice it's going to be very easy for you in the long run. So mix those colors. You can see how I'm working on the nose. I'm moving the strokes in an up direction or up and down direction, and for the highlight, I'll mix that highlight alone, and I'm mixing the shadows alone, the highlights alone, and the midtones alone, while following the original shape of the model's face. So when you turn on the texture layer, you can notice that we still have the textures left intact in this very photo or in this image. So you can see before, after, before, after. So after that, we can now proceed to the rest of the body and continue working on the image. So you can as well work with the texture layer turned on. So depending on how you can visualize and identify the uneven skin tone transitions. So we're now going to come and work on the lower part of the body. So I'm just going to turn this off, and I'll just come and work on the lower part of the body, like the hands. So I'll increase on the size just like that, and mix this dark area of the model's skin just like that, and mix this highlighter alone. Yeah. So how to mix? You drag the brush in a given direction while holding down the left click button. Then if at all you're using a tablet, simply hold down the pen and be as if you are writing or drawing in a given direction, and that is going to be brushing for you in that way. So I'll come to the neck area and also work on the neck area. Remember, we are still mixing while selected on the color or the low frequency layer, so that we can get or achieve the best results. So I'm working on the chest area just like that. So I'll mix the colors right there near the armpit, and I'll just continue working and working and mixing those colors. So you can see hand is moving in an up down direction, so I'll reduce on the size end and mix just like that. Increase on the size and work on this collarbone. So I don't want to forward anything because I want everyone to understand and grasp this concept of skin retouching. I don't want it to seem like I just did a work of magic. So this is what we have so far. So if at all you want to see things better, you can turn on the texture layers to see and identify those uneven areas, and you can perfect them better. So I'm just going to mix on the fingers just like that. So I think this is what we have right now, and I'll show you a quick before and after for this. So this is a before after. The image looks better and it looks smooth enough, and it has been nicely worked on. So, and like I said, take your time as you're mixing because you want the most perfect results at the end of the day. So this is a before after. So after working on the image, remember there are some areas we may have missed out when we are trying to mix using the mixer brush tool, and sometimes we would love to perfect those areas. So for example, in the face area, so for this, in order to perfect these areas, turn on the high frequency and make sure it is turned on by clicking on the visibility icon, and come and left click to select the lasso tool and make sure it is in new selection mode. This first option is selected. Make sure you put the feather to 20 pixels. The reason for that is because when we try to come and we make a selection on the skin, for example that area, let me just press Q on the keyboard to show you this preview. So when I press Q on the keyboard, you can see that the selection is smooth enough. So you have seen those images that have been edited and they have sharp edges or those sharp lines. So it is as a result of this feathering radius. So if at all I press Q once again and I deselect that area and I reset the pixels or the feather to 0 pixels, and I make the same selection right there and I press Q, you can see how sharp the selection is. So always make sure that the feathering is slightly above 15. So I prefer to use 20 pixels, and I'll just hit enter to approve. So make sure it is 20 pixels and anti-alias is selected. So right now we just want to select on the skin, and this time around it is okay and it is totally fine to zoom all the way in. So I've zoomed all the in, and this time I just want to make selections on the skin to perfect the areas that we may have missed out when we are using the mixer brush tool. So to make these selections, you simply left click and hold down and you move around. So keep away from the hair and the eyebrows. So, and select a small area that has skin, just like that. So I've selected that area and follow the way that area is shaped. Then come back to filter and come to blur, and we come to Gaussian blur. So usually it is going to bring back the original or initial radius for frequency separation that we use for this very image. So always left click and start dragging up. Remember, our initial radius was 7, so take it up to the point when you have, or when you feel like the texture looks nice and natural and realistic. So around 21, that is when I feel like this texture is okay and realistic. But if at all you're not confident enough with moving or identifying the right and sweetest spot regarding skin textures, this is the trick I tend to use. So for the radius you had for your frequency separation, so for our case we had 7 pixels. Multiply 7 by 3 and put in that value. So 7 by 3 is 21. So I'll just delete 7 and type in 21, and you can see that gets the results done for us, and hit OK. So we are going to deselect and come this area and select this area right there below the eye, around the cheek area, and come back to filter and come to blur and come to Gaussian blur, and it's going to automatically apply our 21 pixels and hit OK. And if at all the effect is too much in that area, right click on the selection and come to fade Gaussian blur, and you can turn down or lower the effect of the Gaussian blur. So I'll just leave mine to the maximum because I want you guys to see the real effects in real time. So I'll just do the same for every area, but remember, the shapes you are selecting have to follow the way the model's face is shaped. So come to filter, blur, and come to Gaussian blur, hit OK. And to deselect, just click out from the selection because we are in new selection mode, and it's going to automatically deselect that given selection. So I'm just going to come back to filter, blur, and come to Gaussian blur and hit OK, just like that. So basically for this step we are trying to fine tune the areas we may have missed out accidentally when we are using our mixer brush tool to blend the skin tones. So just come blur, and when it comes to the nose, basically only apply it to the darkest areas of the nose because you don't want to flatten the whole nose. So don't select the whole nose and apply the Gaussian blur, because when you do that, it's going to make the nose look a little bit flat, and it's going to make it look bigger than it is meant to be. So hit OK. So right now we are done working on the skin. So for the lasso tool method or technique, I only apply it on the face area because this area has more skin textures, or usually has more skin textures than the rest of the model's skin. So I only apply it on the face area. So after doing that, you can notice that we did not remove the pimples or skin imperfections. So you can see before and after for the blending of the skin tones. So to remove the pimples or blemishes, we are simply going to come and we select the textures or the high frequency, because pimples and blemishes are always part of the high frequency layer. So just zoom in by using Ctrl+ on the keyboard and zoom all the way in up to when you can see the pimples or skin imperfections better. And after doing that, just come and select. I prefer to use the clone stamp tool because it is more precise and produces better and realistic results. So select the clone stamp tool, and the shortcut for the clone stamp tool is S. So select the clone stamp tool and come and make sure the hardness set to 0 and soft round brush is selected. And also make sure right here the mode is set to normal, opacity at 100%, flow at 100%. Make sure align is selected and sample is set to current layer. Because when you select all layers or current and blow and you try to, for example, remove this pimple, you can see that it is copying information from the low frequency layer, which is the color, and painting it back to a texture layer, which is the high frequency layer, which you don't want. So make sure the sample is set to current layer. So to remove, for example, this blemish right there, using the clone stamp tool, make sure you press the caps lock if at all the clone stamp tool is showing a plus icon. So to remove this pimple, we hold down the option key on the keyboard. For Windows, hold down the alternate key on the keyboard and left click on an area that is close to the blemish, and after left clicking you release the alternate key on the keyboard, or you release the option key for Mac and simply left click over the blemish to replace that blemish with clean skin. So if at all you have not understood, you can simply rewind that step. So let me just continue cleaning up and removing skin imperfections using a clone stamp tool. And as I always say, take your time as you're cleaning up or removing these skin imperfections. So zoom out and look at or look for. So to remove, for example, this line, I hold down option key and copy near that line and simply release and paint over that line, and it's simply going to get rid of that line in that area. So that is basically how to best use the clone stamp tool to remove some imperfections on the skin. So right now we are done removing the skin imperfections, and this is the before and after that we have right now for skin retouching. So after doing the skin retouching, I think let's do a little bit of color grading, because I feel like the face is not matching with the rest of the body. So for this, I'm basically going to come right here to the adjustments. So first of all, I'll create a stamp visible layer, and a stamp visible layer is basically a screenshot or a representation of what we had previously worked on in the layers below. So to create a stamp visible layer, simply press Shift alternate Ctrl E on the keyboard for Windows. Then for Mac, it is Shift Option Command E on the keyboard. Create a stamp visible layer, and our stamp visible layer has been created. And after creating it, we are just going to duplicate it once again by pressing Ctrl J, or you can use Command J on the keyboard. And after it has been created, the next thing is basically going to be coming right here to the adjustments and coming to gradient map. So when you come to gradient map, it is going to apply a gradient over the overall image. And don't mind if at all your image is looking a little bit weird or awkward when it comes to this step. So you may also be having a different color. Don't mind about this. So just come and hide the gradient layer and make sure you come back and select the icon. Make sure not the layer mask is selected, but the gradient icon. So make sure this is selected and come under the properties and left click on the color option. So for this, we just want to copy colors from the face area and paint them to the rest of the body. So I'm just going to do this once again. So left click on the color option. So just want to copy colors from the face to the rest of the body. So this is going to represent the darkest point of the skin tone, and this is going to represent the brightest point of the skin tone. So left click on the pointer on the left hand side and make sure the location is set to 0, and left click on the color option and choose the darkest point of the skin tone. Choose a darkest point and not the black point. So just choose the darkest point on the model's skin tone, which is, I think, below the chin, and hit OK. Then left click on the brightest point and make sure the location is 100, and left click on the color option and choose a brightest point of the skin tone. Click OK, and now click in the middle and type in the location to 50 so that the pointer is set to the middle, and left click on the color option. Then we are simply going to click on what we feel is the mid-tone color and hit OK. So by just doing that, you can notice that it has copied colors from the skin of the face and put them on this kind of grid or this line right there. So after doing that, hit OK. Then just come right here and now activate this layer. Come and change the blend mode from normal and change it all the way down to color, and you can see it has applied the color grading, but this still looks awkward and it looks weird. So what we have to do, we are simply going to come to this layer and first of all hide it, and now come and select the layer that we created earlier on. Then you're going to come right here to select and come to subject and let Photoshop automatically select the subject for us. So right now Photoshop has selected the subject for us, but we only want the effect to affect the skin. So we are going to come to the quick selection options right here and get the quick selection tool and make sure it is set to the minus option right here. And make sure sample all layers, these are not checked. So we just want to subtract these areas that we don't want the color grading to affect. So we're just going to left click and drag just like that to subtract particular areas from the selection. So I'm just going to add. So to add the selection, you select the add tool and you can re-add a given selection if at all you have made a mistake. So I just want to subtract from the hair just like that. Yeah, just like that. I think this is okay. I'm just going to undo. So I'll just come and deselect. I think just going to undo. So I think this is okay. I'll just come back and subtract. So if at all it is not doing a fine job for you, make sure the size is slightly small enough and you can keep on doing that. But if at all it is not working, you can always mask out and perfect that later on. So what I'm going to do after making a rough selection, what we're going to do, we're just going to come to this layer and make sure we hold down the option key on the keyboard or the alternate key and click on this layer mask icon, and it's going to create a layer mask. So what we have to do now, we are now going to come to this layer and select it, the gradient layer, and drag it to the group icon to put it in a group. And after putting it in a group, close the group, and now you're going to hold down the shift key on the keyboard and click on the layer mask. So shift and click on this layer mask and drag it and place it over or on the group layer just like that. So after putting it there, just come back and now activate the gradient map layer in the group after opening it. So right now you can see that the color grading has affected the skin, but it is not as perfect as we want. So to perfect it, you are simply going to come under the brushes and get the brush tool. And after getting the brush tool, just come and select this layer mask right there. And make sure you have black and white on these two color swatches. So to reset to black and white, if at all you have any other colors, press D on the keyboard and that is going to reset to black and white. So make sure that black is the foreground color if at all you want to erase. So to switch between black and white, you can use this arrow key, Okay, or you can use X on the keyboard. So what I'm going to do, I just want to erase the color grading from the outfit in this area. So I'm just going to paint using a soft round brush. So settings, mode normal, opacity at 100%, flat 100%, and soft round brush is selected under the settings, hardness at 0. So I'll just come and erase the color grading from those areas. So I'll zoom in and also erase the color grading from the model's lips and the teeth. And by just doing this, you can notice that the image is now looking somehow better, but we are not yet done with this. So I'll just come and paint over the eyes just like that, and also eliminate it from the eyebrows, because eyebrows are not the colors of a skin tone. So perfect the layer mask. So basically what we are doing, we are trying to perfect the layer mask. So we're going to come right here and also play around with the masking by painting on this hair and painting it back in those areas just like that. X to erase it from these parts of the hair just like that. So we have hair right there. So basically we are now almost done working on the skin. So this is what we have right now. So right now we have one issue. The effect is still a little bit too much. So we are going to come to the opacity of this color grading and reduce on the opacity to our liking. So I'm just going to take it a little bit to around 78. Looks fine. Now the skin is now looking nice and even, or even uniform. So next thing is going to be adding a little bit of contrast to the image. So we're going to come right here to our black and white adjustment layer and come and change the blend mode to multiply, and multiply is going to always darken the image. So what we're going to do, we're just going to come to the opacity and reduce on the opacity just like that. And by just doing that, it's going to add contrast to the image. Then we're going to come right here to the levels adjustment layer, then move this in a little bit, moving the levels to around, I think 2 is okay. And also going to move in the whites just a little bit towards this side. So you can start to have added contrast by using the levels adjustment layer. So when you feel like it is okay for you, let's proceed. We are going to come to the selective color. So what we are doing right now, we are color grading the image, and we're going to come to the blacks, and now you can intensify the blacks by moving up the black slider. So I'll move this to around 3. And if at all you have any other random colors, for example, if at all the hair is a little bit yellow, you can play around with the yellow slider to your taste or to your liking. So I'll leave mine to around -2 to make the color look better. So it's the before after for just using the selective color, and you can see how nice and dark the hair has gotten to be. So what we have to do, or what we are going to do right now, we are simply going to open the image in camera raw to do a little bit on the skin tone, or add more contrast onto the skin tone. So we have to come and create a stamp visible layer by pressing Shift Alternate Command E on the keyboard. Then for Mac it is Shift Option Command E. Then for Windows it is Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard to create a stamp visible layer. And after doing that, just come to Filter and come to the camera raw filter. So just want basically add more contrast in the skin tone. So we're going to come down to the color mixer tool and come to the luminance. Remember, skin tones usually have oranges, so just come to the oranges. Luminance is the brightness or darkness of a given color, so I'll just come to my oranges and simply take down the oranges. You can see you can make the oranges darker, or you can make them brighter. So just want to make the oranges a little bit on the dark side. I think that is okay. So if I thought the oranges are a little bit too much, you can come to saturation. And remember, saturation is the intensity of a given color. So I'll just come to the oranges and reduce on the intensity or the saturation of the oranges. So if at all the image is looking a little bit more on the yellow side, you can always come and play around with the hues of the oranges to either make the oranges more red, or you can make them towards the green side. So I'll move the oranges towards the red side, just a little bit around. I think -3 is okay. So this is a before, after, before, after. So after doing that, we are going to hit OK to open the image back to Photoshop. And we just want to work on the skin tone a little bit more. So just come and create a hue and saturation adjustment layer. Come and select the reds and simply come to the lightness and take the lightness slightly down to make the image look better and more natural and realistic. So this is what we have been able to achieve so far. So let me show you a quick before and after. So this is the image before, after, before, after, before, after. So if at all this is okay for you, you can stop here and call it a day. But if at all you'd love to proceed and make the image look better by adding shape or dimension, you're just going to add a little bit of dodging and burning to the image. Remember, dodging and burning is more of enhancing the highlights or enhancing the shadows of the image. Remember, when you are editing or retouching, sometimes we tend to go overboard and we end up with a flat looking image. So just want to make the image look better by dodging and burning and bringing back shape and dimension. So come and create a curves adjustment layer and click in the middle and brighten up just like that. Then press Ctrl I, or you can use Command I on the keyboard to invert the effect. Then you can name this. Remember, we just brighten, so you can name that to dodge. And you're going to do the same for the burn. So just come and create one more curves. Click in the middle and darken the image and press Ctrl I. Then we can name this to burn and hit enter. Then we have to come and put this two in a group and press Ctrl or Command G on the keyboard to put this in a group. And you can name the group to dodge and burn. Then open this up and come and get the brush tool. Mode normal and soft round brush is selected. This time around we are going to be using an opacity of 10%, around 10% or 12%. So just want to enhance the shadows and the highlights of the image. So for the dodging, we just want to use the brush. So make sure you have black and red on these brushes. Press D if at all you have any other random colors. So with white as the foreground color, we just want to reveal the brightening effect on the brightest areas of the model's skin, just like that, to bring back or create shape and originality, or the original shape of the model's face. So paint on the brightest areas, just like that. So you can do the same for the burning, just like that. Burn, just come the fire area and also burn just like that. Can burn this area just like that to create shape and dimension so that the model doesn't look flat. So if at all the effect is too much, always come, you can say before, after. So if at all a given effect is too much, you can come and reduce on, for example, the burn or you can even reduce on the dodge if at all it is too much. Then to balance it all, you can come and reduce the overall opacity of the dodging and burning. So before, after, before, after. So this is what we have right now. Then what we have to do, let's come and create one final color grading layer, which is selective color, and come and select the reds for a skin tone. So I feel like we should add a little bit more of the reds and adding contrast in the reds of the image. So I just come to the reds and come the blacks and simply intensify that a little bit. And I think, so I'm just going to take that up a little bit to around 9. This looks okay and better. So before, after. So this is what I've been able to achieve. So let's do one final bit of retouching, which is doing a little bit of eye and teeth whitening. So to do this, we are simply going to come to the adjustments and create a hue and saturation adjustment layer. Come and make sure master is selected and simply come the saturation and take the saturation slider. Remember, when you are desaturating the image, we are also eliminating colors from the white area of the eye. So around -67 is okay, and press Ctrl I on the keyboard to invert the effect. So with the brush tool selected, opacity in the flat 100%. Make sure white is the foreground color. Reduce on the size of the brush by using the bracket key on the keyboard, and simply come and paint. So if at all you make a mistake, you can switch the brush back to black as the foreground color, and black is going to erase or hide or rub away the mistake you may have created. So I'm just going to zoom in and also paint on the teeth to whiten the teeth. So this is okay and it looks great. Sorry if at all the tutorial is a long one, but I just want you to learn and understand and benefit from this channel. So this is what we have been able to achieve. So let me show you the overall before and after for this very image. So this is our image initially before. This is where we started, and this is where we are right now. Before, after, before, after. So this is how you can easily understand frequency separation from the very start to the very end. And if at all you have enjoyed and learned a thing or two from this video, don't forget to like this video and don't forget to subscribe if at all you are watching and you're not subscribed yet to this channel. Ronnix from ronnixphotography. Thank you for watching, and don't forget, please don't forget to like this video and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget, keep practicing and also keep creating, and I'll see you in yet more videos on this channel.